I think it's important to understand a few things. One, I want to thank Bola for inviting me back. I did have an opportunity to speak last year. I want to thank Pastor for having me here. I want to thank Omo, who's doing the recording, because obviously he's preserving it for all posterity. I understand probably more people will watch this via video later on than are actually here today, and so I really want to thank Omo for doing the video and audio. A little bit about me. I was born in Nuremberg, Germany, to a German mother and an American father who was in the military, and I was in Germany for about 1 year when we came here to the U.S. And I was raised in Newark, New Jersey, and Hillside, New Jersey, which is a little suburb of Newark, by a immigrant mother, because my mother had known absolutely nothing about the U.S. when my father married her, and she ultimately came here. I was the firstborn. My sister was 7 years behind me, and my brother was about 15 and a half years behind me. So I had my father's attention for really almost all of my life. I attended all boys prep school in New Jersey, Seton Hall Prep. And when my father was not working, he was an electrician. He worked for Port Authority Trans-Hudson, which he worked on the train line in between New York and New Jersey, transporting folks from Jersey into New York for their workday and then back. He was an electrician, and I spent most of the time when he was not working with my father. So I've had a lot of time. My mother and father, I would say they had a dysfunctional household, but they were together for a number of years, and I had my father's attention for a number of years. And I think that's important when you understand parenting styles, because I think a lot of parenting styles stem from what my parents did with me. What my parents did with me, that sort of forms my base. Even if I branch and I do different things, the base comes ultimately from my parents. My mother was an accountant, and my father was an electrician. Today, I'm 50, and my wife is Jamaican, my wife and I have raised two boys. One is 14, about to be 15 in less than 2 months, and the other's 11, about to be 12 in less than 2 months. So you can sort of understand the perspective that I'm coming from. And I would say, sort of dovetailing on the doctor's presentation, that parenting changes at different stages. And I sort of break it down into 5 stages, nothing scientific, but these are sort of the stages. Birth to 6. Birth to 6 is going to look the same almost under all parenting styles. Why? Because you got to feed them, you got to keep the bottom dry, you've got to toilet train them, you've got to teach them not to pull their pants down when they're 3 in the middle of the park for absolutely no reason. You have to make sure that they are ready to go to school, reading to them, helping them to learn to read. So that's going to look the same no matter what parenting style you have, birth to 6. The second stage, which I consider to be super important, maybe it's because I just passed through that stage, is 6 to 12. Then there's 12 to 18, and 18 to 24, and 24 plus. 24 plus, I have no idea really what goes on in that stage. I'm not there yet. I think that you're going to be providing wisdom and insight when asked by your children. I think that you have to really figure out and use your discretion, thank you, in terms of figuring out how much I'm going to interfere with their life. But 6 to 12, I think you're going to be very, very involved. I think that that's the age where you should ascertain and foster your children's interests. Obviously, that's the stage that I've sort of just gone through, 6 through 12. Ascertain and foster their interests. And I'll skip to the stage 4, which is 18 to 24, because most of what I do is criminal. I work in Gwinnett County, and I'm a criminal trial lawyer. I've probably represented more than 4,000 clients. I've had easily more than 400 major felony jury trials. What's a major felony jury trial? A forgery is not a major felony jury trial. A major felony jury trial is a homicide, an armed robbery, a rape, an aggravated child molestation, moving 200 kilos of cocaine. So when I lose at trial, clients go away forever. When I lose at trial, the 7-year-old that they have will no longer be raised by them. That's what I do. 90% of my clients are male. So I have a direct pipeline to seeing at 18 to 24 what happens if you as a parent don't do what I think you should be doing 6 to 12. So you can just drop them off at school and be absent. You're going to pay on the back end at 18 to 24. I read Tiger Mom's book. I was trying to look up her name. I think it's Chow. She did a fantastic job at 6 to 12 of just making her children do what she wanted to do. And even though she's not putting it in the book, she's catching hell 12 to 18 because they are absolutely bucking and rebelling. That's not what you want. You want to raise a child from 6 to 12 that you can communicate with when they are 15 and 18 and as you move into the future. So if you ascertain and foster those interests between 6 and 12, I think it becomes a little bit easier 12 to 18 to communicate your values to the children. It becomes a little bit easier between 18 and 24 as they transition to young adulthood to help them make the brave choices in career and the brave choices in following their heart and marrying ultimately the person that they want to marry. And so that's how I sort of look at parenting. Different stages require different things. And I've just passed through, like I said, 6 to 12. Parenting, and I think this is important to say, I don't know if people say it enough, raising children is not for the faint of heart. It's work. And nobody really told me how much work it would be. I didn't anticipate how much work it would be. If I had a chance to talk to myself again, we would have a much more serious conversation. I can't tell you I would not have children. I could tell you that I would be much better prepared for the changes and the work that ultimately is required to have those children. The talk today is about parenting styles, but I really think that the talk should be about parenting philosophies. What's that? Parenting philosophy. How your values direct your goals in raising your children. How your values direct your goals in raising your children. And I think that requires two things from a parent. The first thing I think a parent has to do is ask themselves personally, what is most important to me? To me, not as a parent, what is most important to me as a person? What is it that I value? And then you ask the second question, what is most important in raising my children? That may not be the same thing. What may be most important to you might be security, and what you think might be most important for your children is raising children with courage. Well, if most important to you is security, and the most important thing to them in raising them is that they be courageous, you may need somebody to help you parent. Because if that is not if how you want to raise your children is not the thing that drives you, how are you going to help them to get that which you don't have, which you don't value personally? That's what we're talking about. I figured out the first part when we decided to homeschool the children. First of all, I told you I'm from Jersey. I came down here really as an adult. And in northern Jersey in the 70s, education was paramount. Not just in my home, in the barbershop, in the church, people would talk about education. Like, listen, they can't take your education from you. You got to get an education. That's not what's going on down here now in Georgia since I've been down here. I've been down here since 1998. People are talking about how can I get rich without getting an education? How can I get a nice car or a big house without getting any education. It's an amazing transformation from my youth in terms of the conversation. But when I left the New York, New Jersey area, and I came down here, I knew when I was coming, education here was going to be a problem. One, because Georgia's ranked low in the states in terms of education, and obviously you don't get ranked low in terms of education unless you really don't value education. And so I was already hesitant when I came here about how I was going to educate my children. Love the weather, love the fruits and vegetables, love the 1970 pace. That's what I call it, because up in New York, New Jersey, you got to work 60 hours a week. It's not optional. You have to work just to keep up. But here you can work a 42-hour week and go to the UGA football games every weekend. That's sweet. That's sweet. So I loved everything about that but the education. And what I found, there is a God, just in case there's any doubt, things come to you when you need them. And right before it was time for the children to go to school, I was introduced to homeschooling. I'd never known anybody that had been homeschooled, and it sounded like a great idea because my oldest had already started reading before he was 5. And I'm like, this really, because he has my same energy level, this is not going to work if he can read and we stick him in kindergarten and they're like, B says buh. Like I already can see the conversation. We need to medicate him because he's moving around. I'm not medicating him because he can read and you want him to be at C says cat, cat. That's crazy. That's never going to happen. So because he could already read, my wife was super hesitant about homeschooling, but because he could already read, it had presented itself as a real option. And so we started homeschooling. And we homeschooled him basically from birth until the time he went off to boarding school, which was about 2 months ago. We homeschooled him the whole time. And in the process of homeschooling, there's a huge homeschooling community here in Gwinnett and DeKalb area. In the process of homeschooling my oldest, we had to figure out what we value. Why? Because he's got a smorgasbord of options. He can do geometry, he can do spelling bee, he can do geography bee, he can do an instrument. We chose piano. He can do robotics, he can do poetry, he can do sports, but he can't do everything. So you've got to look at the board and figure out, what do you value? Oh, robotics is not important? Robotics is super important. Oh, Lego's not important. Chess is not important. Poetry's not important. It's all important, but you can't do it all. So you've got to figure out, what do I, as a parent, select for my child? What's important to me? What do I think? Oh, we all want the same thing for our children. We want our children to have work that they enjoy, that they can earn a good living, and we want them to be confident. We want them to be happy. Got that. How are we going to get there? Because we got a lot of ways to get there. Geometry bee, spelling bee, piano, violin, sports, gymnastics, karate. You got a lot of options. And so as a homeschooler, and it's a little bit easier when you just stick them in the school, because when you stick them in the school, they tell you what's important. And then the child comes home and you argue with them about what the teacher says one thing, but you value another, but you put them in the school. That's lunacy. But as the parent with the child at home, you've got to figure out, what do I value? And what I learned, because there's certain things I value, what I learned is I need to listen to my children. So when my oldest was about 3 or 4, he said to me, and I believe things when children say them to me, I don't want to wear a shirt and tie when I get older. And I just make a little note of that. I don't want to wear a shirt and tie. I'm thinking in my mind, maybe it's because I work 60 hours a week. But he said it. I don't want to wear a shirt and tie when I get older. So that's going to limit the type of jobs that you can do if you're not wearing a shirt and tie. That's going to limit it. Now, I'm not going to tell them, listen, your mother is a CPA, MBA, and I'm a lawyer, you're going to be wearing a tie. No, it's not even going to go that route. We're going to find work that you find affirming, not that I think will be affirming for you, not parent-affirming work, self-affirming work. So I take that little note when you're 3 or 4, not going to wear a shirt and tie, okay. And I'm sitting in my office, and he's probably maybe about 6 or 7 years old. Remember, he's at home with mom all day, he's homeschooled. And my wife calls me up, and I remember it like it was yesterday, 7+ years ago, and I pick up the phone, and she says, I think that Alex should play baseball. Oh, come on! Come on! Baseball? I already know. That's team practice, that's individual practice, that's batting practice. Listen, I spent a lot of time in school. I spent 5 years in undergrad with 2 degrees. I got my graduate degree in philosophy. I went to Cornell Law School. I didn't get out really work until 29. And here we are now. I'm trying to get this money together. I'm already behind pace because I got all this schooling. Yo, do you want me to be a millionaire? Like, is this like a scheme? What's going on? And then, of course, the other part of me said, but your wife really doesn't ask you for much. So how about we do the baseball thing? Come on. So we go out and we start doing the baseball thing. What's she know about baseball? What's she know? Come on. And he's hitting the ball. Man, okay, you can know a little something about baseball. So we get into baseball. I have no interest in baseball. None. We get into baseball, and about 2 years into the baseball, he's maybe about 9. He says, I want to be a professional baseball player. Professional baseball player. I don't know nothing about that. But let's chase that for a while. Let's chase that. Now, by the time because when he was born, I was almost 36. So by the time he says that, I'm almost 45. And I can put it together in my head. I'm bright enough to put it together in my head. I don't have an arm that will be able to throw enough pitches to be able to help him bat good enough to get to the league. And so my brain starts working now. This is parenting. This is what I think parenting is. My brain starts working. How am I going to get enough pitches at him to work on his swing? Ding, 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 pull out your tennis ball machine. So I pulled out the tennis ball machine, and we went on to the tennis court on Saturday nights, and he would hit about 1,400 balls. Is that a lot? That takes 4 hours. Pow, 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 pow. He's an obsessive compulsive like I am. High energy level. Pow, 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 pow. Okay. Then we got found out, and the folks there in the community were like, no, you can't hit tennis balls with the baseball bat on the tennis court. And I was like, why not? You just can't do it. That's fine. And then I was introduced to the next piece of equipment. This right here is a mechanical ball machine. And all of the recommendations on it, I wasn't introduced to this one. I was introduced to a blue one called the Blue Flame. And all of the instructions, it's really for a child to learn how to play baseball. It's a pitching machine. And so it's really for a child 7, 8, 9, because there are recommendations here. And you'll see this is a theme with me, not just with presentations, it's just a theme with me. So we started about 37 feet when he's probably about 10 years old. Probably been working with the machine about 4 years. So we start when he's about 10, and we moving in from 37 to 35, 35 to 33, 33 to 32. What do I mean moving in? I mean from the time where the ball leaves the front of the machine to the time it gets to the front of the plate. We're at 24 feet now. There's nothing in that manual that says it's supposed to be used that close, but he's getting bigger, and the other one that's right behind him is getting bigger, so I got to keep moving it in closer and closer to make sure that I have enough speed behind it. So I'm learning how to use the machine, and at 24 feet, I have to give him a cadence because the ball comes out too fast, so I have to create a cadence for myself. Press 1, 2, 3, and then I've got to time the release the same way like I'm a machine. Otherwise, it'll be too early, too fast. They won't have any confidence. So now I've got to retrain myself on how to use this tool to help them improve. And we worked with the machine. We worked with the other one for about a year and a half. They smashed it all to pieces because the ball is being hit back at you. I have bruises all over my body from the ball being hit back at me. You want to be a parent or you don't want to be a parent? What you want to do? What you want to do? I used to, at 37 feet, be able to just feed the ball. Now I got to set up the net and everything. But because there has to be a hole for the ball to go through, there's a hole when the ball comes back. It hits you in the thigh or the elbow. Or you want to be a parent or you don't want to be a parent? You want to help your child reach their goal or you don't want? How you want to do it? And so now I got to start studying baseball because I never really watched baseball. I'm a big football fan. So now I start studying baseball and I see most of the pitchers like to throw low and away. And most of the batters don't let the ball come in to hit low and away. So that's what we work on. That's all we've been working on for the last year. Hitting the low and away ball to right. The machine doesn't throw any curveballs. The manufacturer will tell you, the machine doesn't throw any curveballs. But there are a few people in the room that got sense. Engineers, you got sense. If you create some kind of drag with the ball, you can get some movement. And that's what I worked on for 6 months before I got it. So now I can get the machine, which the manufacturer will tell you should not be used at 24 feet. I can get it to throw a curve ball away to a righty and a breaking ball into a righty. The manufacturer will tell you that can't be done. It can be done, and I'm doing it. You understand? This is what we're talking about, parenting now. Parenting. So I'm going to hand out a sheet, and we're going to talk about, because I need you to understand the context, we're going to talk about ultimately what you think is most important in raising your children. I'm going to tell you what my 2 goals are. I don't know what your goals are. We're going to talk about that. My goal, and I only had 2. Number 1, I wanted to help my son, oldest and youngest, discover and engage in self-affirming work. Why is that important? Well, there's a new book coming out. This is the next book I'm going to read called Men Without Work, written by Nicholas Eberstadt. It also goes by another title on the internet, Zombie Epidemic of Idle Men. And he talks about 15% of the men between age 25 and 54, 15%, are not actively even looking for work. They're just done with working. They're not working. They're not looking for work. 15% of the men in America, 25 to 54, healthy men, are not working. So that's always been my number 1 goal, because I believe it's difficult to make a young man confident if he's not working. It all starts with work. It all starts with work. So my first job, help my son discover and engage in self-affirming work. And what does that mean? That means, number 1, I got to be a discerning listener. I'm going to make him a lawyer. That's the easiest thing in the world, make him a lawyer. I'm a lawyer. That's the easiest thing in the world. But he's already told me what at age 3, 4? I've already told you. He doesn't want to wear a shirt and tie. There is no legal job that I'm aware of that will allow you to not wear a shirt and tie. So we don't even need to talk about that. And he likes being outside. I don't know if he's going to be a professional baseball player or not, but we're going to chase that for a while. We're going to chase that. For those of you paying attention, 18 to 24, if your child has affirming work, he will not find a need for drugs and alcohol. 70% of the business that I have is drug and alcohol related. Doesn't matter what the charge is, whether it's burglary, domestic violence, there's an alcohol or drug problem underpinning the charge. And so for me, the easiest way to deal with a boy, I don't know that much about girls. That's how I also know there's a God. He just gave me 2 sons and said, listen, I'm going to make it easy on you. It's okay. You'll get hit in the leg a little bit. He'll hit you in the elbow. Your arm will be numb. That happened. Got hit in the elbow. I couldn't move my hand for a whole hour. I pulled the machine with my wrist. I don't care. It is what it is. he gave me boys because he knew I could deal with that pain of the paralysis easier than anything else I might have to deal with. We're going to obviate the need for drugs and alcohol by putting them in work that they enjoy. Putting them in work that they enjoy. Not that I think that they might enjoy. I got to listen to them to figure out what they might enjoy. What's number two? Number two is I got to help my son commit to the correct woman. What's that mean? Just what I said. Commit to the correct woman. That means that I've got to help him know a little bit about himself, because the right woman for my oldest son is going to be the absolute wrong woman for the next son. Each of them have very, very different personalities, which is going to call for a very different wife. Number two is going to need a wife that can cook because he likes being at home eating. Number one doesn't care about going out every night. He doesn't care if she can cook because his philosophy is we can always go get something to eat. Very different women. That's my goal for them. So you have the list in front of you. You have a list of how many I put there? 14 and an other. And I put number one. Number one on this, what you think are the most important characteristics for your children, what you value, what you strive for. Number one, intelligent academic success at all levels. That's my mother. That's my mother. I got you academic success as nobody cares about your academic success once school is over. I got 4 degrees. Nobody asks me anything about what school I went to. Nobody has asked in my 40s. Nobody has asked in my 30s. No one cares. So if you want to put all your energy in number one, okay. Because that only lasts between 6 and maybe 26. And if you think your child's whole life is 20 years, then put all your energy in that. That's clearly, listen, my son's at a boarding school and we're educating, homeschooling the second one. And I want him to go on the boarding school. I got college plans for both of them, but that's not number one for me. That's important, but that's not number one. Here's number 2, gregarious and adaptive, get along well with others. I could care less about that. I could care less about that. That's important to some people. I could care less about that. I need to grow. For me, my priority is growing, learning, growing, becoming better economically, socially, as a parent, as a father, as a husband. I don't care what the other people are doing or what they think or what. I could care less. You probably figure that out when I tell you I'm homeschooling, right? Listen, I don't know what they need to do to go to college. There's 3 college degrees in the house. I don't know what it's going to take to get to graduate school. We got 3 graduate degrees in the house. I can prepare them for college. My sister's an obstetrician gynecologist. We can prepare them for any school you want, law school, medical school, MBA school, because we've got direct pipeline to all the people that have done that successfully. I'm not worried about that. Number 3, leadership, which I say is courage and vision. Yeah, you may think that's important. You may not think that's important. A balanced approach to life. What's that? That's where you do a lot of things at an 86. You love God, 86. You got an 86 type health, 86 type body, 86 type bank account. You're doing everything. Well, not great, but well. That's what they mean by well balanced. It's well balanced. Not great, but well balanced. Grit and perseverance. Well, some of this I give away when I bring the book called by Angela Duckworth, Grit. I mean, sometimes I give myself away. Grit. Conscientiousness. Attention to detail. A lot of people can't pay attention to detail. Maybe that's important to you. Analytical mind. How about mastering the technology? Is that important? Integrity. Is that important? Kindness, you see it's way down number 10, kindness. So kindness probably could go with number 2 in my mind. Kindness is not it for me. It's not that it's not important, but I don't teach kindness first. Kindness is not what we teach first. You know what we doing with the ball machine? We trying to rip the cover off the ball. The guy that's throwing the ball, he doesn't want you to rip the cover off. So when you double to right, for the game-winning double, the guy on the mound feels sad. He's sad. He just lost. So I can't teach you kindness because in this game, one of us is going to lose, and I prefer it be him as opposed to us. Okay, so that's probably not going to go well. Creative and humorous. Those may or may not be the same thing. I loop them together. I think that's super important. That's the only reason that my wife married me. But that's not what I'm teaching. That's not what's first in my list. How about emotional intelligence? The ability to understand your emotions, what gets you charged up, what makes you sad, how to get other people charged up, how to diffuse a situation. Emotional intelligence, how about that? How about articulate? Speaks well. I put that down, Chris Christie. If you say, it's important that he be articulate without integrity, then we get a Chris Christie. Yeah. I mean, if you want to talk about he's super articulate. He's super articulate. He's not really about nothing. When the man kicks you to the curb and talks about you like a dog, you don't end up saying, you know what, I'm going to support you and back you. No, you got to have some integrity about yourself. And that's what really the elections are showing me with Cruz. And that's really what it's showing me. It's a lot of articulate, well-polished people, but there's a certain lack of integrity to the whole process. Once you start talking bad about my wife and all of this, I don't care what happens with you. I'm not getting behind you. That's just the end of that story. Responsible and trustworthy, or some other thing. So as you look at the list, because I've given you some time, you got handed it at least 5 minutes ago. Anybody got any ideas? What's 1 and 2? What's your 1 and 2? I like all of them. I got you like all of them. But you can't do, like the potpourri of classes. You can't do art and music and geometry and geography B and spelling B and football. You can't do everything. So you got to pick 2. What's the 2? What's the 2? Anybody. 1, 2. Silence. But you parenting. Or you did parent. And that's the point of the whole talk. Be deliberate. You can be wrong, but be deliberate. Pick 2. Pick 2 and focus your mind on those 2. What is important? Let me tell you mine. Mine are number 3 and number 5. Leadership and grit. I can't tell you if they're the best yet. Come back and see me 10 years from now. I'll be able to tell you. But right now, it's leadership and grit. Now, let me tell you something about leadership. Courage and vision. First of all, when you see leadership and it says courage and vision, that automatically cancels out number 2. Leadership. If you are in the front and you're leading, somebody's going to have something to say about how you are leading. They're going to be unhappy. So if you need to be gregarious and adaptive, that's not going to work. That machine there has allowed me to lead in the way that I want. What's that mean? Not only my children hit off of it, but I train other children to hit off of it. I break down boys. I make boys cry. They at the plate and they can't hit it. It's not me, it's you. I know your daddy throwing all the pitches inside and you doing real well with him, but you got a hole in your swing. And it's not me showing it to you, it's the machine. You can't complain that I'm not throwing the same pitches, because it's the machine. It's you. And when they start crying, I tell them the same thing. As long as you can see the ball, you can keep on crying. Keep crying, because they're going to be tears. Keep crying. As long as you can see the ball, though, keep swinging. Keep swinging. We're going to work right through it. Keep on crying, keep on swinging. What's the machine allow me to do? The machine allows me to show my children leadership. If the game starts at 10 and we're supposed to be there at 9, we get there at 8. Every game, we get there 2 hours before the game because my son's got to hit. And then with the oldest one, he likes to hit for half an hour. He likes to hit 50 off speed, 50 fastball. And then his teammates figured out, oh, you guys are coming a little early, so they start to come a little early. You understand? So if it's a 10 o'clock game, be there at 9. They start showing up at 8:30. So now I got to get there at 8 o'clock so that he can get his swings in before the other people really start coming. Because if we get there at 8:30, it's a line. And he won't be able to hit the way he wants to hit. So I got to get there at 8 o'clock. I got to get there at 8 o'clock. And when everybody starts to hit well, guess what happens? You start winning. So the oldest one, who's now in boarding school in the spring, I want to say they had 8 championships and won 6 or 7 of them. Let me tell you what that means. That means you wake up on Saturday at 7 a.m. You're on the baseball field at 8. You start that first game at 10. 10 to 12 is the first game. 2 to 4 is the second game. By the time you get back home, it's 5 o'clock on Saturday. I'm a trial lawyer. I work a 60-hour week. So when I get home on Saturday, I'm done. So I go to bed about 6 o'clock. Then we wake up the next morning at 6 to get to the ball field by 7. What have I learned? I've learned that you can hit 20 minutes before the sun comes up as long as the sun is behind the batter. How I know that? Because we've been there too early. He can't even see the ball because we're trying to get our swings in. Sunday morning, yeah, your church going to get all jacked up. Let me just tell you what it means. We get out the bed 6:15 on a Sunday morning. We get to the ball field 7:15, 7:30. We are warming up the team from 7:30 to 9:30. Maybe the game starts at 9:30. Maybe it starts at 9. Maybe it starts at 10. You play the first game, there's a break. You play the second game, there's a break. You play the third game, and sometimes there's a fourth game, and you leave the ball field at 11:30 at night. You got there 7:30 in the morning. You leave in 11:30 at night. That was your whole Sunday. That was at least 7 weekends for me in the spring. 7 weekends. Well, when are you preparing for trial? That's what the night is for. When they don't have practice on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I run it from 5 p.m. on Wednesday night into Thursday morning at 2 or 3 in the morning. How can I teach them grit and perseverance if I don't have grit and perseverance? You can only teach what you value. What's important to me? What's important to me is that we chase our goals. I don't care nothing about no baseball. I care nothing about baseball. What I care is that they get the lessons that they need to get, which is when you work hard, things have a way of working out for you. When you provide leadership, you don't really need to do a whole lot of talking. My youngest son just joined a new team, and at the beginning of the season, he was batting 8th and he was playing right field. Do I value number 2, gregarious and adaptive? I do not. That means I'm not going to be in the coach's ear saying, hey, put him at number 1, put him at number 1, put him at number 1. No, I'm going to let his bat do the talking. I'm going to let his play do the talking. And 3 weeks later, what's happening? Well, 3 weeks later, he's batting number 1, and he's playing shortstop. Right. You'll get it right. If you understand the game, you'll get it right because the production is obvious. It's obvious. And when they played their last game, and we were there from 7:45 in the morning on a Sunday till 8:30 at night on a Sunday. Was there any church that Sunday? There was no church that Sunday. So if you love church and your son loves baseball, you're going to have a problem. Let me tell you now, if you love church and your son is a good baseball player and he loves baseball, you're going to have a conflict. You're going to have a conflict. But I believe in God. He gave me 2 boys, and one of them said they wanted to play baseball. So I'm hoping he understanding what's going on. I'm hoping he's looking down and he's seeing and he's understanding what's going on. We playing baseball. On that day, 3 games, number 1 spot, he batted 6 for 8 with 2 walks, which means he got up to bat 10 times, and of those 10 times, 8 times he was on base. Is that good? Well, a 400 on base is great, a 330, so he blew it up. But I don't have to be in the coach's ear. I don't want to talk to the coach. I don't want to talk to the coach. I don't want to talk to anybody there. I just want to come with my machine, get the boys right, because it's not a social event for me. I'm here to get my sons right. I'm here to show them leadership. I'm here to talk to them about leadership. I'm here to show them perseverance and grit. That's it. I'm not here to socialize with everybody else. And in order for me to help my sons become the men that I want them to be, I really have to disassociate myself from the other folks there who are talking about a million things that don't involve baseball. I'm there for the boys, for my son and the other boys, and I'm hoping in the process that everybody gets the lessons that ultimately I'm trying to disseminate. So, that's mine. Leadership and grit. Leadership and grit. Popularity contest, it is not. Leadership and grit. Leadership and grit. So let's hear yours. Because some of you have children between 6 and 24. 18 to 24, they still children. I don't know if any of you know this. Nobody's ready to leave the house at 18. The culture has kept them in a very infantile state for a long time. So they're not ready to leave home at 18. 30 years ago, they were ready to leave home at 18, but they're not ready to leave home at 18 now. So you've got to get ready to raise. For me, 18 now is like 14 then. You've got to be ready to raise a child 18, 19, 20, 21, help them pay for that college, help them get through that college. And this part, I think was sort of deceptive when it said immigrant parent raising American children, because here's the reality. The current culture, we all immigrants. Nobody has raised a child with 2,000 channels, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Nobody's raised a child in that. When I grew up in 1970 in Newark, New Jersey, there were 10 television channels. 10. And television went off at like 12 or 1 in the morning, darkness. And then it came back on to the Star Spangled Banner, I think, at like 5:30 or 6 in the morning. There was no TV at 3 in the morning. There was no TV at 3 in the morning. TV's on 24 hours. Your children got 2,000 channels. There were 3 radio stations. And if you wanted to hear Michael Jackson's Billie Jean in 83 or 82, you had to hope you got the right station at the right time. It was in heavy rotation. But there was no YouTube in it. Now you can just YouTube it and over. So there's no more delayed gratification. It's got to be now. Now. Everything's now. I got to get rich now. So how you going to sell that education to a child, immigrant or otherwise? I need you to go get an education. I need you to go get an undergrad degree, then a grad degree, what? That can work then. I don't know. I think you will see the steady decline of PhDs and doctoral programs, because you're going to have a hard time selling to a generation that only understands now that I've got to do 4 plus 2 plus another 3 or 4 plus a dissertation. That's going to be real hard to sell. And at the end of that, what's at the end of that? Well, then you can begin your career. You're going to give me $1 million? No. Then you can begin your career. Well, that's a hard sell when the young man is saying, wait a minute, I can go over here to this mechanical school and be a tech working for Mercedes in 18 months. And if he does the math, if I'm good at being a tech and I do a little bit of side business, I can make $60,000 or $70,000 a year times 10 years, $700,000. So when the professor comes out with $100,000 in debt, I'm $700,000 up. That's the sort of hard sell for a young man. Listen, for your girls, it's fine. School, I always say, has been built for girls. Swallow it, regurgitate it, fantastic. Boys are a little bit different. I think they have to have some buy-in, and that's going to be difficult. Why do I have all this schooling? Well, because my mother valued education. She valued A's. That's what she wanted. And I didn't know anything. So I went to undergrad and grad school and law school. I wasn't sure I wanted to be a lawyer, but it sounded good because I didn't know any lawyers. You understand? Listen, I love the people that say at 6, I always wanted to be a lawyer. That's fantastic. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was good at school. I did undergrad. I did graduate work because I wanted to study education. I've been studying education for a long time, education and socialization. And then I went to medical school, law school, as a sort of process of elimination. I didn't want to run around piss samples at 3 a.m. So I didn't see me going to medical school and then having somebody say, take this piss sample or blood sample here, here, there. I'm like, dude, I'm not doing that. That sounds retarded. I'm not doing that. I wasn't good, especially good in engineering and science, and I figured I could do the same thing with a JD degree that I could do with an MBA. In fact, people had told me that. So I was like, I'll just go to law school and see where it goes. And then when I got to law school, I figured out, wait a minute, I can go into something that looks just like sports, which is the courtroom. The courtroom is sports. The judge is a referee. And we're going to argue this thing, and we're going to hit each other in the mouth. I mean, with legal principles, but we're going to hit each other. I'm going to hit you in the mouth, you're going to hit me in the mouth, and we're going to see who's the best at this. And we got an audience. The 12 people in the jury. This is fantastic. Like, it doesn't matter what my boss thinks of me. It doesn't matter what the court reporter thinks of me. It only matters what these 12 people over here who are from the community. They don't know me. They don't know this other person. And at the end, they're going to give us a grade. And even if they think my client did it or the person didn't do it, they're going to still afterwards tell me, hey, you did a fantastic job. Sign me up for that. And that's how I fell into criminal law. I can't do real estate because there's no audience. I can't do personal injury because there's very little audience. I had to go someplace that felt like an octagon, like an MMA cage, where it's me against, and it could be 2 lawyers over there. I don't care, 2, 3, 4, I don't care. It doesn't matter. It's competition. That's all I understood, and that's ultimately how I ended up there. So this is what I say when they say immigrant parenting. We're all immigrant parents, because we are all trying to figure out how to raise our children in a rapidly changing environment. And nobody can come up here and sit on any panel and say, this is how you do it, because they haven't done it. I'm in the middle of doing it. I've done the 6 to 12. I haven't done the 12 to 18. How am I going to handle the whole sexting thing? What happens when my child finds out that he has access to pornography? What happens then? What happens when he finds out he's got access to that at 14, 15? How you going to stop that? Oh, I'm going to get this program. You're not going to stop that. It was my thought when the whole rap thing came out. I said, my children just not going to listen to rap. And I figured out that can't work. That cannot work. There was no way for me to exclude it from the house. As long as they have a radio, and how am I going to prevent them from having a radio? And they were homeschooled, so I could control it. When we're talking about the conflict, when Professor here is talking about the conflict with food, the food was not a problem because they were homeschooled. The educational system wasn't a problem because they were homeschooled. So I could control a lot of their friends and the food, but I couldn't keep them isolated from the general culture. So I had to do the reverse. I had to let them listen to what they were going to listen to, and then I had to listen to it, and then I had to piece it apart. And then I had to tell them what they're listening to. And you want to talk about an uncomfortable conversation. Do you know what they're talking about? They're talking about heroin. You know what they're talking about? They talk about sticking something in her rear end. You know what they're talking about? This is what they're talking about. You know what they're talking about? This is what they're talking about. You know what they're talking about? This is what they're talking about. Now, the beat is great. But you don't know what they're talking about. So I need you to know what they're talking about. My wife is like, what? Just say they can't listen to it. No, we can't. I can't stop it. I have to admit, I don't care how much grit I have, I cannot stop the culture from impacting my children. I cannot prevent rap from coming into the house. Rap is going to come into the house. So I've got to figure out how to dissuade my son from repeating words that he doesn't understand. And so we've got to break it down, and we've got to ultimately talk about it. But nobody's done that. Nobody's raised children in the age of YouTube. I'm talking about to adulthood. Nobody has raised a child through Instagram and instant messaging and Snapchat and Kick messaging. And that's hot right now. That's hot. I just finished a jury trial yesterday. 16 at the time, charged with 3 counts of armed robbery. There were 4 of them. One of them was, I know, an immigrant being raised by immigrant parents, because when they downloaded his phone, his dad was teaching him how to drive, and I could hear the accent in his voice. 4 of them. 3 robberies. Coming upon people, pulling a gun, taking their stuff. The main gunman, psycho, robbery, 3 days later, robbery, 3 days after that, robbery. My guy's older brother, who's 20, is the guy punching people and physically taking things from them. Then there's the third person who I know is being raised by an immigrant parent right here in Gwinnett. It's all happening in Gwinnett because I'm working in Gwinnett. I'm not wandering other places, working in Gwinnett. And then, of course, my client's 16 years old who's there. And, of course, I'm thinking it's a big problem because, listen, I may not know the professor, but after I see him pull a gun on the first person and do the robbery, I should be sort of done with him. Like, I got the defense to the first robbery. I don't really know this guy, but, like, what's my defense to the second and the third robbery? Well, as it worked out for my client, they found him not guilty of all the charges. Primarily, I think, because he was 16. He was so young, and all of the older boys, including his brother, were like 3-4 years older than him. And because nobody at trial could say he had the gun or he punched anybody, I think the jury sort of felt sorry for him. Nothing that I think I did. I did my part, but I don't think it was anything I did. I think they just, in the end, felt sorry for him and said, hey, we're going to cut you loose because you actually weren't the gunman, and the reason that you were there, we believe that you were ultimately following your brother around. And so that's how I handled it. It's coming into the house, so I got to deal with it. I'm not going to shy away from it. I got to deal with it. And so I want to go through this list. I want you to take it home with you. I want you to think, hey, what? But let's talk. I don't know if this question and answer time. What's the 2 for you? What's the 2 for you? Are you demonstrating that in how you live? Leadership. You know what leadership means? When me and the professor and somebody else is speeding on the highway, it means I'm in the front. It means I'm likely to get the ticket. Leadership. You can't lead from the back. It means when I'm going up and down Five Forks Trickham, when everybody else is waiting in the line to the left, I'm passing on the right. It's legal. I'm not waiting in the line. Leaders don't wait in the back. That's what it means, leadership. And sometimes when I'm driving, somebody will like jerk the wheel like they're going to scare me. You see right here under leadership, courage. You jerk the wheel, I hit you, then I hit you. Nobody's scared. Leadership. So if you always hit the back of the line on Five Forks Trickham talking to your child about leadership, either your child is not that bright or you don't allow your child to confront you. My children can confront me. My children can say it's BS when it's BS. I give them that permission. If you see that I say one thing and I'm doing something else, you get to call BS. That's not how I was raised. But you get to call BS. I need critical thinkers because they're supposed to vote on Tuesday, right? 10 years from now, you think the candidate's going to get better? Let's get real. Very few things get better. So 10 years from now, I don't see the campaign candidates getting better. I see them getting worse. And so if you're just telling your child, you just got to listen to me, you can't question me, are you raising critical thinkers? Because at some point in time, they got to pull that lever. And I need them to start by questioning what I'm telling them. If I tell you X, you got permission to ask how X relates to my behavior at that particular time. I don't know if that's going to be your parenting style. Is that an easy parenting style? It is not. It's not, because they get to call BS on you. Is it an easy parenting style to listen to your child when your child says he wants to be a fencer? You want to do what? I want to fence. Now you got to go all around Atlanta trying to find a fencing coach. And you got to take them to fencing lessons. And you got to figure out, how do I make them a better fencer? My first thought is have 2 separate people who are average fencers fence with them. Because you're trying to have them go to the Olympics, right? Oh, you just want them just to be a fencer. You wanted to be the best fencer? Because there's a lot of people graduating from medical school, when it's all said and done, they just doctors. They doctors, but they're not dominating the industry. They're not shaping anything. Is it what you want? I just need them to be a doctor. That's it. They're a doctor. Okay. And if you ask their peers what they think about them, their peers think nothing about them because they're just also rans. So when you're ranking all the doctors from 1 to 100, they're 87. Oh yeah, when they come to church, you can clap and say, oh, he's a doctor. But in his field, he's nobody because he's not dominating the field. Listen, if you're on the baseball field, I need you to be the man, okay? And we work on being the man on Saturday in the heat, in the dirt, in the nastiness. Oh, it's raining outside. That's okay. Is this the type of rain where the ump would call a game? No. Then we're going to go practice because we're going to have to hit in this. Is that easy for me? Of course not. It's easier because I got a 12-inch TV at home rather than a 72-inch HD. Yeah, it's easier because I got a 12-inch TV at home. But the whole concept is not easy. If I would have built a man cave first with a 72-inch flat screen curved TV, Sonos, it would be real hard to pull me away from that to get out there in that dirt and grime. But before I could set up my man cave, they were like, let's go hit. And I was like, okay. And then we got the machine and we were off and running. So now I got to wait for the little one who's almost 12, probably turn about 22. And then I can turn them over to somebody else, and then I can go get my real house with my TV and do other things. But right now, we got a parent.
And your man
yeah, right. But right now, we in the middle of parenting. And so every time I hear a man say, yeah, I'm going to do this and do that to my man cave, I'm like, and you got children? Like, how you got time to watch TV? I would love to. How do you, I haven't watched a complete football game since my child started playing baseball at age 6. So for 8 years, I have not seen one complete football game. And I love football. I love Adrian Peterson. I love when he was chasing Eric Dickerson for the single season rushing. I followed him. He tore his whole knee up. I mean, it was incredible how he did that. I followed that. But I haven't watched the whole game. Why? Because I got children to raise. And it's demanding all my energy. Right after work, this is it. That's what I got to do. And so I start to think about it. Okay, let's play it out. If I didn't have work that I enjoyed, then I would need to come home and relax from that job that I can't stand. And that's going to conflict with what I need to do, which is be out there with my children. He came in, he got his football jersey on. What position he playing? Are we doing footwork drills? Are we running out routes? Well, he's a lineman. Well, I don't know. He might have to block a pass or catch a pass. We working. Listen, are you trying to be on the team? Are you trying to be on the team next year? Next year, when I'm working on the machine, I'm throwing pictures they're going to see in 18 months. I'm not worrying about 2 weeks from now. I'm worrying about 18 months from now. I got to get on YouTube and study, because this is their next weakness, study how pitches are thrown and how the ball rotates, and teach them about how the ball rotates, because over the next 3 or 4 years, they're going to see pitchers throwing different pitches. I can't imitate that with the machine. I can imitate balls coming in and moving around, but I can't imitate this ball turning like this is a curveball and this ball going like that's a fastball. So now I've got to figure out how to train their eye so that they can take what they've gained from the machine and the 150,000 pitches that they've seen off the machine and translate that to the next level, which is varsity pitchers throwing them all different types of pitches right in the zone, so they know when that ball is coming in. And that's what got my son. That's how I know. When he went 6 for 8, he got struck out. He got struck out on a curveball that he thought was going to hit him. So he saw it. He was like, it's going to hit me. And then by the time he saw it's not going to hit him, it curved in for a strike. And I'm like, that's my fault, because I haven't shown him how the ball can curve and how he can pick up with his eye that that's a curveball, so he'll know it won't hit him. That's my fault. Now, if I'm over there talking to another parent, do I see that? Oh, he just struck out. And now I'm yelling at him on the way home. No, I know exactly how he struck out because I'm paying attention. You have to be deliberate. You get to rest again when they're about 22. But between 2 and 22, I'm gonna leave to their mama. Gotta breastfeed them. I don't have breasts. Fantastic. Let me sleep. 2 and 22, you got to be involved. You got to be active. Any questions? You're very welcome. Any questions? What you value? What? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Yes?
As an immigrant parent, I know most people come here and they're still trying to find their own footing. From what you have described and all that, how do you manage to, okay, maybe for most people, they come here and start over, basically.
Yes, start over.
So how do you balance that you're still trying to child when you're still struggling with your own stuff?
Well, my suggestion, because this is what I often see when folks come into my office, immigrant parents often come into my office where their children are in trouble. The immigrant parent is chasing the American materialism. The immigrant parent is chasing the house and the Mercedes and this, and they often have, at least the trappings when they come into the office, but it came at the expense of their child. And so at some point in time, you're never gonna be all the way there. You're never gonna be set. You have children. And so you have to come to the realization that either I'm going to have the career that I want and have the material things that I want at their expense, or I'm going to have less. And that was a very uncomfortable realization probably about 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, that I had. It's just very uncomfortable as I'm walking through the parking lot, all the schooling that you've done, all the hard work that you've done. I have to have less in order to raise them right. I have to have less. Can I have a bigger house? Of course I can have a bigger house. I've got a Volkswagen diesel. I would have loved to have bought an M5. First of all, it's not going to work because they're bringing red clay into the car. And when I was younger and I had the M3 BMW, I could just tell them to take their pants off. But you can't keep telling, as they get bigger and bigger, young black boys at predominantly white public parks, take your pants off before you get into the car. Oh yeah, they still got the sliding shorts on, but they're pulling their pants off. And the older one's he's like 6 feet tall now, even though he's only 14. They say he's gonna be 6'2" or 6'3". You can't have a 5'8" young man, 5'9" young man pulling off his pants before he gets in the car because you don't want the red dirt grinding on the leather seats. You're going to have less. You're going to have less. You have to be good with that. You've got to come to terms with, if I work more, if I do this, I can have more. I am going to be deliberate and have less because I need to spend this time. They're not going to wait for you to get your stuff right before they decide they're going to grow up. They're going to grow up. They're learning, and you're teaching them. So you can come to church on Sunday and say, family, family's what I value, family's what I value. They're not stupid. They're not stupid. They see what you value. You value keeping up with the Joneses. And so they'll let you talk that talk, and then they'll say, hey, I need an iPhone 7. You don't need an iPhone 7, and you didn't need that CLS 550, but you got it. And so now that you're riding around in the CLS 550, why shouldn't I have an iPhone 7? That's a hard conversation, because now it's about the inconsistency in the messages that you're sending. Either we're going to have the best materially or we not. And so I get away with a lot with my boys, because when they come home, they say, we can barely see the TV. Do you think I want a 12-inch TV? And they start thinking oh, he probably don't want a 12-inch TV. I'm riding around the diesel. You see your uncle over here, right? Your uncle over here, he got 3 Mercedes, right? He got 3 Mercedes. He got children too. You don't think I want an M5? And they say, yeah, he drive a little, he probably do want one, right? Why do I have what I have? I have what I have so that I can be here with you, helping you work on your dream. I'm not trying to live through you, because I never played baseball. I'm trying to help you achieve your dream. And I need that time. The baseball's been super important because it's allowed me a certain amount of time. And the most important conversation I think that parents are going to have, especially with boys, probably with girls too, is, do I think this the right woman for you? Do I think this the right man for you? And I'm already preparing that conversation. Listen, son, this not the right woman for you. Okay, I can see by your face you don't like that. Do you think I want her for myself? No. Okay, good. So why you think I'm telling you she not the right woman for you? Remember how I told you should wait for the inside seam and you should do... So I've got always the baseball reference. Was I right or was I wrong? You were right. And so we can always go back to the baseball, because he saw one thing, I saw another, and in the end he saw I was right. And so we have this frame of reference to talk about when I say, listen, I'm not telling you don't date. I'm saying get to know her, look at this aspect, and this aspect. This is why I don't think she's the right woman for you. And that's a super important thing, because I think in the end it's going to be about affirming work and marrying the right woman. And we've got to be able to have the second conversation about woman is even more important than the first conversation about work, because you can always change your jobs. Once you're with this woman, you had 2 children, you're with her for life. Okay, you can get divorced, but you still gotta, you gotta raise these children together. You gotta go to the events together. The child's gonna get married. You're gonna see her the rest of your life. So I see the head crowning. You're in. You're hooked. And so that is what I would tell parents. But that's all parents. That's not immigrant parents. That's all parents. You are going to have to decide what's the most important thing to you. You may have the smallest, oldest, raggediest car on the block. I don't care much about that. But I can say that because I've already driven in a Mercedes. I've already driven in an M3 BMW. So I know that there's no car that's going to give me that sense of fulfillment. So there's no car that I have to chase anymore. My brother can get me almost anything I want. There's no car that I need to chase anymore. The house is comfortable, and for me, the most important thing is what happened during this season. My son moving from 8th in the lineup and playing right field to number 1 and playing shortstop on his own merit. That's the most important thing to me. Seeing them succeed, seeing them confident. All of my issues get worked out in the courtroom. All of my need for, clapping and all that gets worked out at work. When I come home, it's really just about them. And that's what I think all parents, not just immigrant parents, I understand you're starting over. I think all parents really have to understand you are in. For me, I think the culture is attacking your children. That's how I say it. The culture's, and it's attacking mine. It's not like oh, my children are immune because they're American. No. The culture doesn't care. The culture wants to produce sheep, consumers. All they want to do is turn your children into ATMs that constantly pay for the new iPhone, pay for this, pay for that, pay for the shoes. And as soon as the children buy into that, there's a lot of pressure on the parents to sort of keep up. And that's where it's like, you know what? I got to go a little bit different route. Education's important, but I don't think my children can learn leadership through education. Leadership comes on that baseball field. And grit comes on that baseball field and with that piano and in school. And so I know school can't do but so much. So while people put a lot of emphasis on school, school can't do it all. I did school to the max. School didn't teach me 3. School didn't teach me 2. School didn't teach me 4. School didn't teach me 6. School did teach me 7. School didn't teach me 8. School didn't teach me 9, 10, 11, 12. School didn't teach me none of them. Number 1, number 7, number 13, call it number 14. Out of that list of 14 things, and you're looking at that list saying, this all good. But school can't teach you all of that. It just doesn't. I mean, we can always worship at the altar of school and grades, but I'm telling you, I've done a lot of schooling. I know what school can and cannot do. And so as an immigrant parent, I think you really got to think about, what do I value?
I mean, just add to some of what you said. There are obviously many things school can't teach. School can't teach parenting, which is what we are here to discuss. School doesn't teach even marriage and family. School teaches marriage and family. School also teaches parenting, essentially through the subject that you learn, the subjects that you learn, like biology, history, and all of that. But like you said, though, this list is not exactly taught in school, but it is taught in school. I think most of the parents in the room, I'm not going to be saying everybody, but definitely myself, and then what we know of immigrant parenting, they value education.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, that's exactly the conflict between the immigrant parents and their children. The immigrant children hear from their other kids
Right.
what the parents are saying. Just go learn baseball.
Right.
Be the best
Right.
quarterback
Right,
you could be.
right.
And in the end, you'll be earning
Right.
12 million,
Right.
13 million. I don't even know what they start
Crazy.
them with.
Crazy.
But immigrant parents, no. In fact, immigrant parents don't want their kids to be doing sports.
Right.
First of all, they don't have the time to be taking them.
Right.
Sunday is extremely important in
Right.
an immigrant parent's family.
Right.
Home, and they might not even have the time on a Wednesday to take them to anything
Right.
other than church,
Right.
because there will be another round of events at church.
Right.
Where they are coming from, again, this is where the background is extremely important, and where we have to, one of the things I said in my talk is you have to strike a balance. They are coming from an environment where in the colonial period, the only people that was anything,
And education.
they had
Right.
education.
Obviously.
They were attorneys like you. They were doctors. They were engineers. They are teachers. Some of them even just pastors. They are the people with power. They are the people also with some money. The parents are coming from that environment where to be anybody, you have to have an education.
Right.
What you said is perfect, is accurate as far as the American society is concerned. That's one of the fears of the immigrant parent, that their children will be so corrupted and they might buy into this idea. Take, for example, baseball. How many children, even those who are in college playing football or playing basketball, how many of them eventually end up in the NBA, NFL,
Right.
and the baseball league?
Right.
Very few.
Right.
Yes, you learn leadership,
Right.
you learn critical thinking, you learn all those things from those important sporting events. And this is where the immigrant parents will need to be able to balance that, have their kids exposed to it. Many churches actually have
Baseball leagues.
their own league.
Basketball.
Have them exposed to that. Let them learn how to win, how to lose, and the emotions that go with both. But I'm not sure that we will have immigrant parents buy entirely into this concept. They could take, and this is where they are very good at this, they will take elements of what works in America, they will take elements of what works, because the majority in America will still have to be based on that educational level. And research shows that somebody with a bachelor's degree earns better
Oh, absolutely.
than only somebody
Absolutely.
with a high school
Absolutely.
education.
Absolutely.
And somebody with a higher degree than the bachelor's
Absolutely.
and a little bit even more than that. So I just thought that we could point out the balance, because going, and this is something that might be what all the religions in the world teach. You don't go to the extreme one way
Absolutely.
or the other.
Absolutely.
Try to shoot for the middle.
Absolutely.
that balance.
And I think it's important. It's important to say this. My son, my oldest son, is very bright, but and he's doing fine in school. I mean, he's doing fine in school. But I had to sell it to him. I had to sell school to him. Oh, he can see on the wall the degrees, and he can see how he lives and how he rides, and he thought he wanted to be a shortstop. This is how crazy it is. He's like, I want to be a shortstop. I'm like, you can't be a shortstop. He's like, I want to be a shortstop. So I put my money together, and we went down to Dominican Republic. I don't speak Spanish. We got a friend of mine, and he took us out, and we played baseball with the Dominicans on the crappy field with the crappy balls. And my son figured out he didn't want to be a shortstop, that he couldn't be a shortstop because that's where they produce shortstops. It cost me $10,000. To show my son that he couldn't be a shortstop cost me $10,000. That was money well spent because I told him you can't be a shortstop. And it also put in his head, I got to work harder. He's not interested in school. I don't know that I ever was interested in school. I was interested in getting A's to keep my mother quiet. That's what I was interested in. Let me get A's and keep my mother quiet. That's a difficult position for you to sell to sons in 2016. In 1970, you could do it. 10 channels, no TV in the afternoon, not 2,000 channels, not YouTube, not cell phones. I have to get my son to get some buy-in. He's at boarding school because I think he will thrive in an all-boys environment. They construct activities for all boys. He has to do 4 years of school and 2 or 3 years of college. I don't know if he's going to finish college or not. I don't know. But in order for him to go to the league, he's got to do school. So he's at boarding school with the desire to go to Vanderbilt because it's a D1 school for baseball. I don't care how he gets there. I don't need him to say, I really value education, because I don't think that's going to happen. I don't value my education that I got at 15 till I'm 45. If you think a 16-year-old boy is going to say, I value this education and it's not going to happen. So you've got to figure out a way for him to wake up in the morning and be excited about going to school and doing his best in school without him necessarily loving school, because school's not built for him. School, listen, anybody can come up here and tell you about school. I would love to see a man come up here and say, I think school was built for men. School was, they encouraged experimentation, and that didn't happen. Does education address everything on this list? Education will touch everything on this list, but it'll touch it lightly. And that YouTube is touching them heavily. That kick message and that cell phone and those 2,000 channels and that Pandora, that's in their face all the time. We're not talking about how kindness and conscientiousness might be touched on in school. I need you to get a counterbalance in the school. What's the school teaching them off this list the way they're learning what they should dress from YouTube? Nothing's having that kind of effect. Your son is wearing shoes and clothes and hats and dress based on what he's seeing on the videos, based on what other people are wearing in the schools. That's what's going on. And if the school is touching on grit and perseverance like that, we'll be good. But the school is just tangentially touching on that. They tangentially touching on conscientiousness. So it's easy for a child who's not paying attention to miss that lesson. So for me, my point is, be deliberate. Find your child's interests and use your child's interests to pull them through school. Because the school as it's currently constructed is not really meeting your child's needs. And you gotta know that. You gotta know that. And you can't think it's about immigration or race or anything. The school's not meeting anybody's needs. The people that are going to the best universities, the Harvards and the Yales and the Stanfords, those kids are almost all the same in any of it. They all are from immigrant households. A lot of them Asian, a lot of them Indian. And what's the emphasis? Well, the parents, the father who's an engineer, he's just killing them with science. The whole year is science. Science. So of course he's going to be number one. Why wouldn't he be number one? That's great for 6 through 12 and 12 through 18. And then we get to university and we see what? We see Harvard soccer being disqualified for the rest of the season because of the sexual innuendo. We see the incident in Stanford where the girl is so drunk out of her mind that the guy is raping her by the garbage. Listen, that can't be the answer. We can't be trying to get to these top universities. Is there any doubt what they are? MIT, Stanford, Harvard, Yale. And when we get there, people don't have the judgment. They don't have the character. They don't have the leadership to say, listen, I'm not going to participate in this. This is not going to happen. And that's why I say it's got to be more than just the schooling and the grades and the education, because you can be tops in your grade. If you don't have the courage to say, I'm not going to participate in this, you're going to get swept up in it. You understand? And I'm not trying to fit in. If you're doing the wrong thing, I'm not trying to fit in. Well, you're going to be on the outside. Then I'll be on the outside. Where we going to go from there? Nobody's scared to be on the outside. You're not going to be able to get a job. I'll make a job. I'm not going to be frightened into participating in anything that does not align with my values. I had the same problem when I was young, so my parents and I had to go our separate ways. I'm just not a follower. I've never been a follower. Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon.
Yeah, I want to ask a question with respect to like disciplining a child. Example, maybe a teenager. You mentioned children can call 911 for you, and if you beat the child, you may end your career, or it can be one issue or the other. Now, how do you get the child to listen to you, to put him in the right way and tell him that this direction you are going is not the right way, and you cannot beat the child, and you're trying to like talk to the child and the child is not listening? So what method of discipline will you use?
Okay, well let me take a stab at it. First of all, my wife very intelligently said we're not going to use corporal punishment. I have anger issues, and because let's just tell it. I have anger issues, and I like the physicality, and because I deal with clients who don't like to listen, who sometimes go to prison for 50 years, if my child is not listening, I may just give them a little bit extra for the client that I just dealt with that didn't listen. So it's probably best that I didn't engage in corporal punishment. And when she told me, I really didn't understand, because my father used corporal punishment on me, and he didn't have to do it a whole lot because I understood the issue of pain. But with my son, what I figured out is if I can manipulate another person, if I can get them to see the world the way that I want them to see the world when I'm talking to them as a juror, I should be able to persuade a child. Let me suggest to you this from the legal perspective. Nobody's saying this, but one of the unintended consequences of the anti-domestic violence push is people don't want anybody putting their hands on anybody in the house. So one of the unintended consequences of you cannot choke your wife or push your wife, which is fine, is you really can't hit your children either. So as a mother, hitting a 15-year-old girl, as long as you don't leave a mark, that might be okay. A father hitting his 15-year-old boy, if he leaves or doesn't leave a mark, he's going to jail. He's going to jail. Let me just tell you that right now. If the father hits his 15-year-old son and the son gets on YouTube or Facebook or whatever and talks about it, the friend that talks to him the next day is going to have that boy talk to a counselor, and the police are coming to your house. DFACS at a minimum is going to come, but I think the police are going to come and they're going to arrest you. If he's hit above the shoulders in his head, you're going to be arrested. If he's hit and there leaves a mark, you're going to be arrested. I'm just telling you, you're going to be arrested. Now, how that charge is handled later on, that's something else. And that's an important segue to what I'm saying. You need to have a certain amount of buy-in with your children. My son bought into the fact that boarding school would be good for him, which is why he's succeeding there. And he's close enough where I bring the machine up there every other weekend and we hit. We hit last weekend, we're going to hit tomorrow. So I get to spend time with him. He cannot be in the house with my wife because he's pulling away from her, and she's not one that easily gives up control. She pushed him out without an epidural, and she wants to hold him real tight. You understand? I'm just telling you what's going on. She doesn't really want him to grow up. And she's trying to learn how to be a mother to a teenage boy, but he really doesn't want any mothering. And so what I found was the easy solution. Of course, it's not an easy solution for everybody because it's prohibitively expensive. Is putting him at boarding school where he could see other parenting and guiding styles, and he and I could communicate in the way we can communicate and spend time. I don't know what the answer is other than I think to stay away from the legal realm, you have to get a certain amount of buy-in from your children. They have to be convinced that there is something in it for them. So this is authoritarian type style. We just telling them what to do, or you make it. I don't know if that could work. And unless and until the school, I love school. I did school. That's no problem. Unless and until the school changes, because the school's doing the same thing. The school's just telling them what they need to put back on the paper. The parents at home just telling them what they need to do. I think you have to sort of more engage with them, find out what they're interested in. That's all this is. If he goes to Vanderbilt and graduates in the top class at Vanderbilt, I could care less if he played baseball or not. But if I could use baseball to trick him into studying hard and working hard in high school and studying and working hard in college, I'm gonna use that. Because I can't use force. So my father's way is not gonna work for me. That's the only other way I know can sort of produce. That way is definitely not gonna work for me. So I gotta get some buy-in. So this is what I say: teenage children. If you got somebody before teenage, talk to them. 6 to 12, find out what they're interested in. Get them to buy in. My son told me what his SAT score needs to be to get to Vanderbilt. He told me what he thinks his GPA needs to be to get to Vanderbilt. So that means that when it's time to study, I don't have to call him up and say, are you studying? He wants to go to Vanderbilt to play baseball. If I get him through high school and he graduates with a 3.8, do I care why he did that? Does anybody care? I mean, when they find my client not guilty, do I care why? It's because I had on a white shirt or a red. I don't care. As long as your child makes it through that period, find what they're interested in, feed that. Feed what they're interested in. They've got to buy. In order for them, I think, to buy into what you're selling, you got to buy in a little bit to what they're selling. That's my view.
Thank you. I think you addressed the biggest part of it, the law. In all of my studies on this subject, and I guess that is God answering. in all of my studies on this subject, I think the biggest fears of the parents is losing their children. Now, losing their children come in so many different ways. Their children becoming a whole different person. Their children doing things that they might not have approved of or might not have encouraged. And then, of course, losing their children, the biggest one, to
prison.
To drug, alcohol, and then, of course, perhaps all this other stuff. I don't know, because disciplinary matters come in different shapes. What you might want to discipline the child for might be different from so many different areas. Is it not paying attention? Is it being unteachable? Is it being antagonistic? Is it fighting outside? Is it using foul language in the home, which for African immigrants is no? Is it rebellion against you as parent, you have to determine what it is that is the need for discipline. Then you have to engage the child, him or her, in a conversation. One of the things that is found in the studies is that communicative parenting or authoritative parenting, listening back and forth, engaging the child in a conversation where the child, son or daughter, feels free to come to you to talk to, where you just talk rather than talk about issues. Just talk. Just in the house, 2 or 3 of you are in, and there is no moment of dullness. You're just talking, just yapping at each other, and everybody's laughing. When it is time to really talk about something serious, it goes in. It is not the only. If the only time you speak with your child is when you have to correct something, that child will continue to rebel because you had not earned I don't want
trust.
to say the trust
There's no rapport.
of each other.
Right.
So that needs to be there, and this is what the studies, also say, that where the child and the parents are openly communicating, there is less of issues to even address. But if there is an issue to be addressed, it is spotted like
Early.
100 days,
Right.
200
Early.
days
Right.
early.
Right.
You are able to get it quickly. And of course, you have to pay attention. The
Right.
attention is important. Listening skills. I'm also a mediator. We teach this in mediation. How do you listen to somebody? Are you listening to somebody? Are you listening to your child? Thinking at the same time, and this is what we do, we enjoy doing in Nigeria, thinking about what you are going to say,
Right.
rather than what is she or he telling me. That way, and my wife is really good at this. She's perceptive. She can spot it from a mile off, and so you need to be an active listener, and then to be able to also restate what the child has told you back to him or her. Because if there is a misunderstanding, he or she can say, no, I didn't mean that. I only meant this. When we first came into this country, this is the example I use when I teach mediation. When we first came into this country, my colleague at work, she has kids that are my children's age. My colleague is white, and she had those kids. One day the kids came to our house, and that was the first time they saw me. And the older of the kids saw the marks on my face. And when they got home, he asked his mom, what is that thing on, your all kids call Mr. Adebayo's face. And so his mother, a historian, and thought this is the teachable moment.
Right.
And then she lashed into all these things about African culture, about this and that. This is only a 6-year-old kid. 15 minutes after all the explanation, the kid said, well, I didn't ask for all of that. I just thought that maybe Mr. Adebayo just woke up and the wrinkled sheets left mark on his face.
Okay.
If you don't listen, you risk the possibility of taking something way off, and when it is just this little thing. But at the same time, if you don't listen, you have a way of minimizing a big thing, thinking it's just one small thing. But the trust that is earned by that conversation before an event occurs is crucial. Now, what if that conversation hadn't been happening and these big events are already here? What can I do? Try to initiate that conversation. And we, mediation, we focus especially on conversation, on communication. You need to talk. You need to talk it through. Now, if that is not working, because it's been a long, deep-seated, problem, it's been going on for maybe a few months, maybe even years, then it's time to engage a professional. And I think one of the things I said in my talk is we cannot, at this stage, not consult with professionals. We can talk to friends and ask a friend to talk to your son or daughter. You could ask, Mrs. Odetokun, you could ask the pastor, but you need a third party, a neutral, respected person, respected by both of you. It cannot just be your own confidant. It has to be somebody that your child also trusts, that will be objective. When intractable problems arise, no matter the age of the child is already an adult. You need to treat, if a 15-year-old commits a crime and it's an egregious crime and it's repeated, what do you all do? You treat them as an adult. So you need to start treating them. I don't know the age. This is just a general conversation, and it is hard work. It is not simple, but from the perspective of being a mediator, I know that some of the biggest intractable problems could just be, not always, could just be about communication. How does the child communicate? How do you communicate? And are you actually hearing each other, or are you just talking at parallel lines? And how do you connect that? The connection might be engaging with a professional, a trusted person that is trusted by both of you. But the professional is the most critical, because your child might just be looking at how things are in America, and you're looking at how things are from where you are from. It's not the same. Have somebody in the where things are in America work with both of you to get you through. The child is probably by immigrant status an American, but even if it's not an American right now, it's likely to become an American eventually. You are likely to say, I've had it, I'm going home. This is home for him or her. It's not going anywhere. If he goes to Nigeria or Ghana or wherever, is going to be a stranger there. I know that my kids told me already. One of them is married here and all. We visit. If you guys go back home, we visit you. But we're here. And my wife was a little bit shocked by that, saying, did I make a mistake coming to join my husband in America? The kid said, thanks for bringing us. We're really great. We love it. And you just can't understand it. But you have to be able to engage in conversations like that, and they tell you all kinds of things. BS mean, as you said. Yeah. They should be able to tell you what you guys did wrong, and they should be able to produce a skit on how you talk to them without you getting offended. And that breaks the barrier. That breaks the barrier. I'm going through all kinds of things myself, so don't think I have any answer at all. But these are some of the things that I'm also practicing. My older daughter, who lives here in Gwinnett, one day there was an issue. I just called, I'll be coming over to you in a few minutes. She said, I had arrangement with my friends. Okay, what time are you available? Because if it's in Nigeria, I can't, she dared not tell me
You just
that
come
she had
over.
something
Yeah.
already planned. So we arranged, then I went over and we talked and we ironed things out. They have to be able to tell you without getting offended that this is not a good time. I mean, that's the state at which we are. Not that things don't happen. Things happen, and we walk through it. And I mean, this seminar like this is one way, but there are just so many other opportunities. So I wish you all the best, and I wish all of us here all the best. Raising children, like Mr. Lewis said, is not easy. It's a task, and it's a task that we signed on to before we even knew all the details.
There it is.
Somebody said parenting is the only thing you get into without any manual. Marriage is too. There's no manual. There are books and stuff, but amazing enough, some of those who write parenting books are not even parents themselves. And so they tell us all these things, but it's challenging.
I think the professor's right in that the talking has to go on before. So for me, again, that was the blessing of baseball, because it's impossible to be with you for 13 hours where you're only playing baseball for 6 and not talk. We have to talk. We're here. We're not going back home in between. So it lends itself, and because we can focus on a task, it's not this sort of sit down, share your feelings time. Yeah, we can talk about our feelings, but we have a goal. The goal is hitting, and then we have downtime to talk. That really is the blessing of it, and that's why I say pick something they're interested in. My youngest he's at chess with my wife, and so he'll be at chess from probably 9 to about 5 today. He's only going to have 3, maybe 4 chess matches. They only last half an hour, so he's only going to physically play chess for, I don't know, 4 of those 8 hours, 3.5. Well, what are they going to do the other time? They're going to talk. They're going to talk. You're already there. The talking is very natural, and he's taught me far more than my oldest. He taught me a lot about my assumptions, because things would happen and I would always have the most corrective parenting spin as if it was something wrong. And then as I went and found out what happened, I would find out that he was right. And so he really taught me to ask more questions and understand what his intention was. Forget the outcome, forget what it looks like, what his intention was. And because he's just so truthful, once I began to see how he interpreted events before he acted, there was no need for any discipline, because he hadn't acted incorrectly. He had acted. When you use your initiative, sometimes you're going to be wrong. When you use your leadership, sometimes you're going to be wrong. You're just going to be wrong, and it's going to get all messed up. The question now is, if you value leadership, how do you handle that? There's no discipline required. He exhibited initiative. He exhibited leadership. It went all cockeyed, and something got messed up, and now I got to pay for it. And there's no discipline necessary. Good job with leadership. That's it. That's it. I don't want to tell next time. No. He understood that he didn't have all the information. He made a good decision with the information that he had, good job. Now let me pay to fix it. And I got to pay and fix it. And that's it. And a lot of people won't want to hear that, but that's the reality. He hasn't done anything wrong. So I'm slow now to, and I have a natural intensity, and the younger one always interprets that natural intensity as anger. It's like, dude, I'm not angry, but because he has such a calm demeanor, when I'm like, all right, oh, you see, you're mad. No, we gotta focus here. We just gotta focus. It's not anger. And so I've learned with him to gather more information and try to see it in the most creative, constructive, proactive way before I move to how to correct it. Because with him, most of the time I see there's no correction needed because he's not doing anything wrong. Bad result, but he's not doing anything wrong that led to that bad result.
And as regards the other part of your question, what do we do if we can't spank them? Take privileges away, see if that helps.
Take that phone.
Yeah, that, the phone will
Take that phone.
The phone will hurt, but might get another one at AT&T. But take just whatever it is that you think they value, and it will be important for them to. But before you do that, though, you have to establish, the premise. With the premise that if you did this, then you get your, privileges back. When my son was growing up, there's a friend in the neighborhood who was homeschooled. As soon as my son gets back from school,
Playtime.
a friend
Yeah.
in the neighborhood will come over. He had been home all day.
right.
He needed to get out. My son had been out all day.
Need to
He
get in.
needed to be in and do his. It doesn't work. And my son wants to go out. Say, okay, finish your homework. When you finish your homework, then you go out. And on one occasion, it was under what is called, timeout or it was not to go out to play until he had corrected something. And this young man comes over. I said, today, Adeolu is not going to go out with you because, he's not going out today because he can't go out and for the next several days. And the hot feeling on the boy, was so severe. I mean, I didn't know what to do. I felt like I should just take him out of his suspension, and then I said, no, if I did that, he might think another friend will come and my dad will break.
Mm-hmm.
So didn't do that. I mean, so it's for a week. So after that week, you can. So the young man didn't come, and then the following week he came in. As soon as the school bus is coming through the neighborhood, he sees it and is out already, coming to meet my son. And they were good friends. They do skateboarding. My son does photographing, all the skateboarding activities. He posted many of them, even before YouTube, on YouTube. So, know what might want, not necessarily what my heart, but what he might really
Respond.
respond to, and then use that. Because in any case, corporal punishment was to achieve that same thing, to touch your behind and know that something was there. And I got a lot of it in school, got a lot of it also at home. But at the end of the day, according to research, but also in my own experience, the hurt was for a short while. And what you are correcting was also for a short while. It doesn't mean that I won't go back and do that same thing again. But I can remember the times that my mother spoke with me, or the times that my aunt that I lived with from the time that I entered modern school back in those days, which were like middle school now. I could remember how they spoke to me and what they said. I could remember that even far more than I would remember what I was punished for by being given so many strokes of the cane. So seriously, corporal punishment is only temporarily effective. The child will do what you want him or her to do that moment after the beating or something. But the next, why do you have to beat him again? If he had learned or she had learned, it's because it doesn't help as much. Talking to the person, getting both of you to agree on a procedure, and please, and this is for all parents, don't tell the parents, I'm going to kill you. You're not going to kill me. So that when you threaten, I'm going to kill you, and you don't carry it out, they see it's an empty threat.
Right.
So it's, and in Nigeria, that's one of the expressions. Today you come home, they are going to carry your dead body away. No. The kid understands that and might even respond in kind. So if whatever you are going to do, if the child disobeys, make it achievable so that it is something you can do legally and you could achieve, rather than a threat that is empty.
No, but the thing is, don't when you get mad, don't act or speak when you're mad anyway. This is
Yeah.
what I learned. Just go away someplace and figure out what you're going to do and then come back. Because whatever you do in that moment is going to be wrong. And then you're gonna have to figure it out later. So with his example, like with the boy coming over, you have to know your son. My youngest son, no, he has to be in the house for a little bit, do his work, because he's more introverted. The oldest one, as soon as he comes home, I'm gonna send him out, even before he does his work. Yes, because he's been out, but he's been confined in the classroom, and he has to burn off a certain amount of energy before he's ready to do his school anyway. So you have to know your son, and then you have to deal with the second one saying, but he goes out. He does go out because he's a different child. And now you have to have enough of a relationship with the children to treat them different if they are different. Each one can't be treated the same. The younger one, in that 2 hours before he goes out, can get his work done. The other one, in the 2 hours before he goes out, everything is garbage, because all he's just thinking about is going out, going out, going out. So just let him go out. He goes out for his hour and a half, and then he comes in and he can actually get work done. I'm not a morning person, so if you want me to get up at 4:30 every morning and work, it's just not going to go well. I'll work deep into the night, but I'm not going to be able to get up and just jump to the work. I don't work best then. So his requirement for me as an employee is wake up at 4:30 and work from 4:30 to 10:30. What he's going to get is garbage. And then he's going to say I'm a bad employee. No, you're not playing to my strength. Let me work from 9 till 3 in the morning, and what you're going to see is magical. Same time period, different time of day. And you got to get to know your child to know that. We got the wrap-up sign.
Please put your hands together for our speakers. I want to quickly reiterate some things before we round up. I want to comment on what Mr. Lewis said about taking his son to play baseball on Sundays. He's not trying to tell you not to go to church.
Oh, no.
But there is a time for everything. I mean, we all know these sports are seasonal, right? So if it's the season and that's what you have to do, God is going to commend you for doing the right thing for your child, rather than you come to church and you're not even effective anyway. So if it's 7 weeks in a year,
Right.
that is the sacrifice you have to make, it's understandable. And then, of course, the other days that you're not playing baseball, you're committed, you're doing what you're supposed to do, you're reliable, you're dependable. You know, the church can depend on you to do what you're supposed to do. And of course, you keep up your personal relationship with God. It's not the amount of days you come to church anyway. So if you're doing something productive and that is the time frame that you need to do it, there is no sense of guilt with that. As long as, you know, you don't use that, you're not trying to use that as an excuse.
right.
So please do what you have to do for your child, but don't use that as an excuse, because at the end of the day, it's your personal relationship with God that matters. That's number one. Number two is, we've all heard about, you know, one of the recurring themes is ongoing conversation with your children. You know, have conversations with them during good times, so that when you correct it, when there's a need to correct them, you're coming from the right place. It's not like I told my manager one time, the only time, why is it that the only time we hear from you is when something is bad?
Right.
When we do well and other managers commend us and all of that, and our clients commend us, we hardly hear from you. That shouldn't be. I'm not going to take that correction nicely because you've never even said good job to me at some point in time. So as parents, let's learn to have ongoing conversations with our children. Let's commend them when they do well. You know, let's just have general conversations with them. So when there is a need to correct, they won't take it, you know, like antagonism. Because if all your child hears is, don't do this, don't do that, you did that bad, you did that wrong, da 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 da. They're human. They're going to react against you, and you don't want that. Discover their interest, and use that to bond with them. He plays baseball or practices, you know, with his children. And of course, during the time they talk, you know, if your child loves to do one thing or the other, develop that as an interest. Or even if you don't play, but at least learn the terminology, you know, and things like that, so that you can have an effective communication with them about that. You know, let it not be that it's over your head. You don't even have a clue as to what they're talking about. Then you're not going to be effective as a parent. One thing that immigrant parents, African parents, you know, non-US parents don't like to do, we don't like to apologize to our children. Please learn to apologize to your children, to your child. If there is a need to apologize, apologize. In those days, they would say parents are never wrong. It's a lie. When you're wrong, admit that you're wrong. I have given permission to my children to call me out, but one thing I tell them, don't call me out in public, and don't call me out in a rude way. You can correct me. You can say, oh, mommy, you said that. Oh, mommy, you did that. I didn't like it. You can say that to me. It's okay. Like you said, let me call your BS on it. But I've told them to learn to do it in a nice way and not, you know, in the public. So please give your children some permission. You're not perfect. Admit when you're wrong and apologize. For instance, you accuse child A of doing something and you later find out that it was child B who did it. And they say, anyway, it doesn't matter. Yes, it does. It does. Call that child, apologize. I'm sorry. I thought you did that, but I found out that it's your brother or your sister who did it. Apologize. It gives them a sense that you have integrity.
Right.
And that you're a honest person.
Right.
And that they can trust you.
Right.
If you keep doing this, you're already sowing seeds of distrust in them. And when it comes to the bigger issues of life, they won't trust you either. So that's what I want to say. I hope we have all learned something. I hope it's been worth our time coming here. Thank you. Dr.
Thank you.
Thank you.